My phone buzzed. Dinner at mom and dad's? Don't forget to bring a date this time, sweetie. 30, single, tech executive. The words sweetie and date felt particularly grating as I looked out at the Austin skyline from my office in Zenith Tower. Below, the sprawling campus of Sterling Ventures hummed with activity. They were so busy, so important. They had no clue. I was Elizabeth Morgan, CEO of Phoenix Labs, and I owned them. Sterling Ventures, a company that ironically relied on my software, Athena. They were the industry giant, the movers and shakers. I was the ghost in their machine, the silent architect of their success. They thought I was just some well, they had no idea. The irony was delicious, a secret I savored. The burden, however, was a heavy one, carried in silence for years. 5 years. 5 years ago, I was a junior developer, fresh out of MIT, brimming with ideas. My head was buzzing with AI, neural networks, the future. I thought I had it all figured out, the key to unlocking efficiencies, revolutionizing business. I presented my proposal, a fully developed AI process, to Calvin Sterling, the CEO himself, and Mark Olson, my direct manager. The meeting was a disaster. Sterling, his face a mask of boredom, dismissed it with a wave of his hand. Dorm room nonsense, he'd scoffed. Olson, nodding in agreement, chimed in, stick to your assigned duties, Ava. It was a blow, a gut punch to my ego. I was young and naive, but I genuinely believed in my work. I thought I was offering Sterling Ventures a golden goose, a chance to leap ahead of their competition. The real betrayal came later, in the shared drive. I was reviewing the codebase, double-checking some elements, and there it was. My proposal, slightly altered, bearing Mark Olson's name. The core concept was there, but clumsily implemented, missing key components. They de-stolen my work, watered it down, and claimed it as their own. Humiliation washed over me. Anger too, yes, but mostly a quiet, cold resolve. I thought about confronting them, screaming, revealing my outrage. But something stopped me. The thought of them twisting the situation, framing me as a disgruntled employee, crushing my reputation before I'd even begun. I knew then that a silent exit was my only choice, a path to true victory. I submitted my resignation. No fanfare, no explanation, just a simple, typed letter. I left, my heart a mix of anger and a burning desire to prove them wrong. I left Sterling Ventures behind and then went to work. Over the next 3 years, I poured every ounce of my energy into refining my AI platform. I lived and breathed code, sacrificing everything for Athena. I lived off instant noodles and the fumes of my laptop. I was living in a tiny apartment, scraping by, and all of the investors I talked to scoffed at the idea, calling it pie in the sky. They dismissed it. They didn't get it. But I persisted. Phoenix Labs was born. I secured seed funding, enough to build a small team. We licensed Athena to various industries, meticulously staying anonymous, making sure no one could connect the dots back to my past. We provided the core technology, the engine that drove their operations, and they were entirely oblivious to the fact that their success was dependent on the very person they had dismissed. We were getting results. Companies were seeing a 30% increase in efficiency, a 15% reduction in operational costs. It was working. The email arrived 2 weeks ago, a crisp, professional inquiry. Sterling Ventures seeking partnership with Phoenix Labs regarding modernization of internal processes. Calvin Sterling, desperate to catch up in the rapidly evolving tech landscape. The irony nearly choked me. I let them sweat. For 2 weeks, the stock price of Sterling Ventures had been in freefall. Their quarterly reports were dismal. The gossip in the industry was that they were on the brink of irrelevance. I could almost taste their panic. My mentor, Veronica, a seasoned entrepreneur, had been a constant source of support. "Seize the opportunity, Elizabeth," she'd urged. "This isn't just about revenge, it's about showing them the power of your vision." She was right, as always. My original pitch deck, the one Olson had stolen, had been the foundation of Phoenix Labs. Athena wasn't just a piece of software, it was the backbone of a hidden empire. Phoenix Labs had grown exponentially. We were generating $50 million in annual recurring revenue with a net profit margin of 45%. We had acquired 3 smaller tech firms, expanding our reach across multiple sectors. My personal net worth was pegged at $250 million, mostly invested in diversified assets and prime real estate. I had an army of 20 brilliant developers, all working tirelessly to enhance Athena and expand its capabilities. We held patents in crucial AI applications, a portfolio that was valued at over $100 million. I set the meeting. On my terms, in my office. The day arrived. A sleek black car pulled up to Zenith Tower. Calvin Sterling, his face etched with a mixture of desperation and feigned confidence, emerged, followed by Mark Olson, his usual smug expression replaced with a nervous twitch. Several other familiar faces from Sterling Ventures trailed behind. They looked small. They were entering my domain. I greeted them with a polite, businesslike smile. The tension in the room was palpable. They were eager, almost obsequious. Sterling rattled off a prepared speech about how much they admired Phoenix Labs, how they had recognized the need for innovation, how they wanted a partnership. I let him finish, allowing the silence to hang heavy in the air. Then I activated the projector. My original proposal, the one Olson had pilfered, filled the screen. The title, AI Process Optimization for Enhanced Business Efficiency. The author, Elizabeth Morgan. The shock was immediate, visceral. Olson's jaw dropped, his face turning a shade of crimson. He fumbled, dropping his tablet with a clatter. Sterling stammered, his carefully constructed facade crumbling. "Elizabeth," he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. "But you were just a junior developer." "I was," I confirmed, my voice steady. "And now, I'm Elizabeth Morgan, CEO of Phoenix Labs, the architect of your current predicament." The atmosphere shifted. The air crackled with unspoken truths. They needed me desperately, but I wasn't selling, I was buying. "Phoenix Labs has initiated a hostile takeover bid," I announced, my voice devoid of emotion. "We have secured support from a majority of your shareholders. Your company is now effectively ours." Olson looked like he was about to faint, his face ashen. Sterling was crushed, his shoulders slumped. The weight of his arrogance, his short-sightedness, his betrayal had finally caught up with him. "I understand this is a shock, but your services are no longer needed," I said, then paused. "However, I am offering you a performance review and potential reassignment within the new company structure. Mark, you will oversee internal audits, a role you are very good at. Calvin, I am afraid this is the end of your tenure as CEO." I saw a flicker of what might be relief on his face. I smiled, a genuine, almost pitying smile. "The future is now." The Zenith Tower lobby shimmered. I walked towards the elevator, my footsteps echoing on the polished marble. I'd chosen the corner office, the one with the panoramic view of the city, specifically for this moment. The anticipation, the sweet taste of retribution, was almost intoxicating. I stopped at my desk. The invitation to my parents' dinner sat innocently, a stark reminder of the life I'd carefully shielded from scrutiny. "Bring a date," it said. I chuckled, a tight, humorless sound. I had a date, in a way, a date with destiny. I glanced at the framed copy of my resignation letter, a relic of the past, a reminder of the humiliation I'd endured. I still kept it, a testament to the fire that had fueled my transformation. I picked it up, tracing the crisp, typed words with my finger. It was a tangible piece of my history. The door chime announced my arrival. I straightened my back and walked towards the door and opened it. The Sterling Ventures team shuffled in, looking like sheep being led to slaughter. I gestured toward the plush leather chairs arranged around the conference table. "Please, have a seat," I said, my voice calm. As they sat, I picked up my phone and called a number. It was the signal. Within minutes, my legal team would be filing the final paperwork. The takeover was official. The silence in the room grew thick, suffocating. Mark Olson, his face pale, kept glancing at Calvin Sterling, who fidgeted, avoiding eye contact. He knew. They all knew now. I could see the questions swirling in their eyes, the desperate attempts to understand the situation. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze sweeping over them. It was time. I steepled my fingers, a deliberate, theatrical gesture. I felt a surge of power, a sense of control I'd never experienced before. "Shall we begin?" I asked, my voice soft but laced with a hint of steel. I took a deep breath. I walked to the projection screen, picked up the remote, and pressed the power button. The room darkened, and a familiar presentation filled the screen. The title, AI Process Optimization for Enhanced Business Efficiency. The room, in its own way, was about to explode. The screen flickered, displaying the Phoenix Labs logo, then swiftly transitioned to the original proposal. My name, Elizabeth Morgan, glared back at them, bold and undeniable. I let the silence hang, a thick, suffocating curtain. Olson, his face a mask of disbelief and creeping dread, sputtered, but, that's. Sterling's carefully constructed facade crumbled, his eyes darting between the screen and me. Elizabeth, is this? He trailed off, the question hanging in the air, a pathetic plea for reassurance he wouldn't receive. Yes, Calvin, I said, my voice cool and controlled. This is the future, and I am its architect. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Olson's hands trembled, and he struggled to regain his composure. The others, the middle managers, the ones who dismissed me with polite smiles and a dismissive nod, now looked like they'd been caught in a trap. They were trapped. We've been using your software? Sterling managed, his voice cracking. Indeed, I confirmed, a hint of amusement creeping into my tone. Every algorithm, every line of code, every success you've enjoyed in the past 3 years has been powered by Athena, my creation. I watched as understanding, and then horror dawned on their faces. Sterling's shoulders slumped. Olson, the man who'd stolen my work, looked like he might be sick. The others, the ones who'd benefited from the stolen project, were frozen with a mixture of shock, shame, and a dawning understanding of their own insignificance. And now, I continued, the words precise and deliberate, Phoenix Labs is taking over Sterling Ventures. I saw a flash of anger in Sterling's eyes, quickly masked by a desperate attempt at a smile. Olson, his voice a strained whisper, said, "We can work something out. We can compensate you." Compensation? I raised an eyebrow, a slight, mocking curve to my lips. The time for compensation was 5 years ago, Mark. Now it's about aligning our visions. Your vision, as it turns out, was a copy of mine. I moved to the head of the table, my presence commanding. The faces around the table shifted, some in anger, most in fear. Phoenix Labs is not about revenge, I said, my voice resonating in the suddenly quiet room. It's about progress, and progress requires a new direction. I gestured towards a document. Phoenix Labs will be taking over Sterling Ventures operations. We will be integrating our teams and working together to build a better future. Mr. Olson, I'm afraid your position is being eliminated. Olson's face turned a pasty white. He slumped back in his chair, defeated. The smugness was gone, replaced by raw terror. I turned to Sterling. Calvin, I think it's time you consider retirement. You've done a lot for this company, but it needs a new vision, a new energy, a new leader. I paused, my gaze sweeping over the room. And that leader will be me. The room was silent. I picked up the phone and dialed my assistant. Send the press release. The immediate aftermath was a blur. Legal teams swarmed, press conferences were scheduled, and the phones rang constantly. News outlets buzzed with the story of the junior developer who'd outmaneuvered the industry giant. The next day, headlines blared. Sterling Ventures acquired by Phoenix Labs, a David versus Goliath story. I stood in what was now my office, the corner office, Sterling's office. I looked out over the Austin skyline, the same view I'd had before the meeting, yet everything was different. The building still bore the Sterling Ventures logo, but the Phoenix Labs logo would soon be installed on the front facade. A daily reminder of the transformation. I picked up my original pitch deck, the one that had been stolen, and placed it on my desk, a testament to my vision. It would be a constant reminder of my journey. I received an email from my parents, congratulating me and asking me to come over. I smiled and typed back, "I'll be there, and I'll bring a date." I closed the email and looked at the resignation letter, still framed. It read, "To whom it may concern, please accept this as my formal resignation." It was a reminder of the humiliation I'd endured, a reminder of the path I had taken. I knew now that the best victories were public, and that I hoped my story would inspire others to own their worth and build their own tables. I smiled. I was ready. The integration was swift, brutal. Olson, stripped of his managerial power, was relegated to overseeing internal audits, a role he performed with a grim efficiency that bordered on resentment. His interactions with me were now curt, devoid of the casual familiarity we once shared. He was a ghost of his former self, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had shaped my life. Sterling, after a brief, tearful farewell to the company he had built, retreated into early retirement. His corner office, once a symbol of his authority, was now my secondary workspace, a place I visited occasionally to remind myself of the journey, of the arrogance I had conquered, and the silent strength I had nurtured. The first few months were a whirlwind of restructuring, rebranding, and damage control. The media loved the story, the underdog who had outsmarted the industry giant. Interviews, presentations, and board meetings filled my days. I was Elizabeth Morgan, CEO of Phoenix Labs, the new face of innovation, and I reveled in it. Some relationships, however, crumbled under the weight of the revelation. Some of the middle managers, the ones who had dismissed me with polite smiles and a dismissive nod, now avoided my gaze, their faces a mixture of awkwardness and regret. They were complicit in the betrayal, and they knew it. Their performance reviews were thorough, and they would be gone within a few months. Other relationships evolved, strengthened by the shared experience. Veronica, my mentor, became a key advisor, her counsel invaluable as I navigated the unfamiliar waters of public scrutiny. The developers at Phoenix Labs, my loyal team, celebrated my victory, their pride in our shared success palpable. They were the ones who had believed in me, the ones who had seen my vision, and they were now reaping the rewards. The most significant change was within myself. The initial satisfaction of revenge had faded, replaced by a deeper sense of purpose. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore, it was about building something meaningful. I had transformed from a victim into a victor. I received a call from my mother. "Honey, are you okay? Everyone's talking about you." "I'm better than okay, Mom. Are you sure you don't want to talk about it?" "I'm good." The Sterling Ventures building, once a symbol of my humiliation, was now emblazoned with the Phoenix Labs logo. It was a testament to my resilience, my vision, and my unwavering belief in myself. I felt a surge of gratitude, not for the victory, but for the journey that had led me here. I looked out the window at the Austin skyline. I had built my empire, and I was ready to own it. The city skyline gleamed, and I knew, with a certainty that warmed me, that this was just the beginning. The world had changed, and so had I. The transformation was complete. Sterling Ventures was now Phoenix Labs, a beacon of innovation, and I, Elizabeth Morgan, was at its helm. The initial euphoria of victory had settled into a quiet determination, a resolve to not only maintain the momentum, but to surpass all expectations. My daily routine shifted. Instead of hiding in the shadows, I was now front and center, attending industry events, giving keynote speeches, and fielding calls from venture capitalists eager to invest in the David who had slain Goliath. The shift in how people treated me was stark. Old colleagues who had once dismissed my ideas now sought my advice, their flattery thinly veiled. Even Mark Olson, now relegated to the role of a glorified accountant, would occasionally attempt to engage in casual conversation, his eyes pleading for a semblance of the camaraderie we once shared. I met his attempts with polite detachment, a coldness that was both a consequence of his actions and a necessary shield against further betrayal. My parents, initially bewildered by the sudden spotlight, had become my biggest cheerleaders. My father, a man of few words, would beam with pride whenever my name was mentioned on the news. My mother, bless her heart, began to pepper her conversations with tech jargon, desperately trying to understand the world I inhabited. While their support was unwavering, the constant attention, the endless questions about my personal life began to feel suffocating. "When are you going to settle down?" became a refrain, a reminder of the life I'd sacrificed for my ambition. One unexpected consequence of the truth was the scrutiny of my personal life. Reporters dug into my past, seeking any angle to sensationalize the story. My dating life, or lack thereof, became a topic of public interest. I found myself increasingly guarded, wary of anyone who approached me, unsure of their motives. My once sacred privacy was now a commodity, and I felt vulnerable. However, the newfound respect also brought unexpected opportunities. I was invited to speak at MIT, my alma mater, to share my story with the next generation of innovators. I established a foundation to support aspiring female entrepreneurs, a way to give back and empower others to pursue their dreams. My actions showed that success could be built on resilience, on overcoming adversity. My relationship with Veronica deepened. She was the anchor that kept me grounded, reminding me that the journey was not about revenge, but about the legacy I wanted to create. I began to open up to her about my fears, my doubts, and the burden of responsibility. She, in turn, pushed me to embrace the public role, to use my platform to inspire and drive change. One evening, I found myself staring at the resignation letter. The words seemed to have lost their power. I folded it up and put it into a drawer. It was a part of my history, but no longer a defining feature of my present. I was no longer defined by what had been taken, but by what I had created. The next challenge loomed, the board meeting to discuss the future of Sterling Ventures. The new Sterling Ventures. It was time to decide what my legacy would be. The next chapter was about to begin. The air in my office, now the corner suite once belonging to Calvin Sterling, hummed with a quiet electricity. The Austin skyline glittered, reflecting the city's boundless potential. I surveyed the room, the Phoenix Labs logo gleaming on the wall, a symbol of rebirth. What was gained? A kingdom built on the ashes of betrayal. Power, respect, and a platform to reshape the world. What was lost? Years of solitude, the carefree innocence of youth, and the simple joy of being just Elizabeth. The cost of secrecy was high, a life lived in the shadows, relationships strained by the weight of the untold truth. Yet, in that silence, I had honed my skills, cultivated my vision, and built a fortress of resilience. The reward? The power to define my own narrative, to prove that innovation, driven by integrity, would always triumph over ignorance and greed. The journey was a mirror, reflecting the best and worst of human nature, the capacity for both profound cruelty and unwavering loyalty. I am here, at the precipice of a new era, ready to build, to innovate, to inspire. My hope? That my story serves as a testament to the power of believing in yourself, even when the world tells you otherwise. And to you, the reader, who may have been underestimated, overlooked, or silenced, know this: your voice matters, your ideas have power. Your time will come. Build your own table.